We will make very quick, short, because we are behind the schedule. So I hope 15 minutes will be enough to hear something about impact of culture and sport in our daily life. So I will just start with the short questions to ask you about your feelings. So we see how culture is involved in Olympic movement, like open ceremony, closing ceremony. At Franja, we decided that we are more interested to intangible cultural heritage, because what people think, how they transmit those information to the next generation. So my question for Miroslav Cerar is how you see culture in a daily life when people need to train every day, how this passion it still exists for the respect of your opponent, how these cultural effects affect high-level sport.
I concern that the sport is the one part of the culture, and we in sport, we see on one side body, and another side we see movement, and all this together is sport. Our country is a very successful country. We have excellent achievements, but on the other side we care about sport values. Maybe I mentioned before fair play, tolerance, no discrimination and so on. And we are in schools with lessons and also among clubs and sport organizations. And this nowadays Olympic Games are a little different. If we see the cover 10 note or notion is a little changed, but nevertheless we try to follow these human sport values, because these values are values for all of us, not only in sport, in society. But regardless of different time, I worked and competed in the time of amateurism, now is professionalism, now is money prevailed, sometimes prevailed is ambition, too much ambitions. But the base element is heart, is love. How to exercise and relation to youngsters, and to be model, especially elite sportsmen, to be model for youngsters, for children. No, enough.
Thank you. Next question for Ginter. Your sport organization has a special department for culture. You are unique in this way. How this department works? How you transmit this culture to the sport clubs in your society?
Yes, Samuel, you're right. If you look into the organization of Austrian sports and maybe also into European sports, the sport union in Austria is the only organization which definitely has culture in their bylaws. That means I do have a seat in the board of the sport union in Carinthia and also Austria, and also in our bylaws it's written down that we need to be also focused on our values, on fair play, on our behave in case of Christian and so on. How it works? Hardly to say, but nevertheless we have always the possibility to talk to our clubs, to the responsible of the clubs, and give them help when they start to think about how they can include culture in their sports events, how they can teach their members in case of fair play, in case of doping, whatever, you know, all aspects of this. So, yes, I do have the possibility to move something, of course, but again, in our days, it's very hard because in the public mind, sport, or many people in public mind are thinking that sports has nothing to do with culture, with tradition, which is definitely not true.
Okay, thank you. Next question for Tomasz. When you present the cycling, one lecture before, we also saw the Marathon Franja, how was in the past, people help each other, friendship on the course. They help each other if somebody have a flat tire or something. What you remember from cycling? What is the most important message when you go on the course?
Well, it's hard to answer. On one side, I was very young at the time when Marathon Franja starts. So we were anxious how it's would be to be member of the Marathon Franja. Sorry, what was the question again?
What is important when you go on the course? Is just the muscles that you finish the race or is it something else also?
Depends. If you're a child, how we say, playful, or you're competitive. You know? If you're
The
competitive-
question, yes, was mentally connected to it, Franja, with, let's say, the family marathon. It's the biggest cycling marathon for the families, and these values we want to transmit, and maybe in this connection.
Yeah, but you had with the organizing of marathons, many people could get a chance to compete, and they were going to compete similarly as sportists. So even they were recreationalists, they were very competitive and wanted to have a good result. All others maybe were more recreational. I don't know. Just depends from the person to person, from group to group. I don't know what would I say. For me, as a historian, and I would say it's an interesting part of our sports history because with marathons started these mass recreational events who affect on the thinking of the people, of the mind of the people to be healthier, to be physically fit, what influence also on the mental condition.
Okay, thank you. Last question for Petra. We saw that Olympic movement support culture very well, and maybe in the next phase of Olympic movement, how should culture works on the top level events? Because we see that this is important.
Yes, it is important, and the values are, I think, the bridge between the culture and the sport. If we both connect to the same values, I think this collaboration is possible, and it can be a very good win-win situation for, as Mr. Miroslav Cerar, I would said before, sport is part of the culture, so if we begin with that and we respect the values, I think we're on the right way.
Okay, thank you everyone for this short panel.